everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Masichaba Mtembu and this is a series I call Bedside Reads. Basically, I talk about books that I've read and I am a versatile reader, so I will talk about self-help books, fiction sometimes, and also just people's memoirs of going through different things and their lives. And I hope you enjoy this session. Please like, comment, and subscribe if this sounds like something that you would be interested in. Okay, so today's episode is, I call it Faith, Hope, and Forgiveness, because I want to talk about two books that I've read. One is, it's called Left to Tell, Discovering God Amidst the Rwandan Holocaust. And the second one is called The Choice by Edith Eger. It's also talking about the Holocaust, but the one in Germany. Left to Tell is by Immaculèe Ilibagiza, and I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but that's the one that I want to focus on mainly. The reason I focus on these two is because they focus on an extreme experience. So the Rwandan Holocaust, I also had to Google and just learn about it as I was reading the book, but it happened when there was tension between the Hutu, the Tutsi, and the Twa ethnicities in Rwanda, and it focuses on that. And something happened to Immaculée that was a very traumatic experience, and over the years she had to now navigate forgiveness and basically healing from this experience. The same thing happened to Edith. It's a real story. It's not fiction. It's what she also had to go through when she was imprisoned and when she survived prison, and how she navigated healing and forgiveness over the years. So I call it Faith, Hope, and Forgiveness because Immaculée survival is based on her faith. She used God, and that's why she says discovering God amidst the Rwandan Holocaust, because her experience revolves around how she survived the whole experience, and her main source of survival was God. One, it's called Left to Tell. So if I can give just a bit of background about Immaculée. So she comes from a family, she's the only daughter, three brothers, and her family was a respected family in her neighborhood. Her parents were educated and they wanted education for all of their children. So her brothers went on to do masters, and I think one of them did his PhD. She also was like at university when all of this happened. But because of the African context of, how African families are, a woman is meant to be seen and not heard. And so in as much as Babwake wanted her to be educated, she still had to be seen and not heard. And so it's quite ironic that she's the only one that survived, or she's the only one that survived to tell the story of what happened during the time. So a disclaimer as well is that I don't want to give you all of the details of the book, because I would like you to also read this book for yourself. I would like you to learn from her experiences and apply them to your own experiences. Just when you start reading the book, there's a quote here that I've always believed, but it was just affirmed when I saw it here. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And for me, that stood out immediately when I started reading the book, that it's such a true statement. And also there's something about how our lives are intertwined so that we're able to learn from each other. Naturally, there is a character here that I do judge. In fact, two characters that I do judge, and I will tell you a bit more about that as I start to talk about the book. So this whole book revolves around Immaculée. So the war started around 1990 and it intensified in 1994. And it led Immaculée to be stuck in a bathroom, a very small bathroom with 6 other women. She explains how small the bathroom was, but a bathroom. So it has a toilet and a shower. There's not enough space for a sink, but it's a very small bathroom, and they were stuck in this bathroom for 3 months with 6 other women. When they were stuffed in this bathroom, like there was literally no way to move. They had to use sign language to say, okay, now let's sit down. Somebody wants to sit down. And so they just had to navigate. But by the time they left the bathroom, there was space because they had lost so much weight. While they were in this bathroom, there were times where they would go 3-4 days without food. It was a very intense situation. The reason for this is because Ubaba that was housing them, the pastor, was a Hutu. And so during that time, if you were a Hutu supporting the Tutsi tribe, you would also be killed. So if they were to find out, the soldiers, that the reverend was housing Tutsi, they were all going to be killed. So when Immaculée is stuck in this bathroom, they couldn't talk at all, like not even a whisper, because that's how much they were afraid. So at some point, the soldiers would come and be around the house, and at some point, they actually want Immaculée specifically. Okay. Let me go back. Immaculée did not know what ethnicity she was, because that's how her parents raised her. When she started school with other children and there was a roll call of Hutus, how many Hutus are here, how many Tutsis are here, she didn't know what she was. And the teacher on her first day threw her out of the classroom because how come you don't know who you are? And Uputuake, also raised not to know what he is, said, when whatever your friends get up as, now we get up as that, because, you know, we're friends, so we're similar, so we must be what they are. So she ended up standing up when the Hutus were standing up, because her friend was a Hutu. So she also stood up as a Hutu, but she was not, she was a Tutsi. So as she's going through this whole ordeal, there is a point where she meets her friend. So when she comes into this house, she meets her friend. Her friend's name was Jeanette. And her friend is angry at her. This is someone who she was best friends with. And the friend is like, do you think me and Nabe are the same? We're not. You're a Tutsi, I'm a Hutu. You know, and so she's shocked by the fact that how can somebody, we were so close to a point that we regarded ourselves as sisters, and now she's saying, I'm a Hutu, she's a Tutsi, and all of that. So, you know, you get in this book how people changed even on each other, because the people that were part of the soldiers, it wasn't just the military that was the Hutus. They were neighbors and friends, people that she grew up knowing that they have families, you know, they are a community. They were the people who were now out with spears and whatever, their grenades, wanting to kill people that they were part of the community with, purely based on their ethnicity. So what happens when Immaculée is in the bathroom? She learns about God. She's a Catholic. She she prayed Irosali quite a lot as part of her growing up. But when she's now in this bathroom, she has nothing else to believe on except God. And I feel like she could have believed in something else. You know, she had the choice to, believe in something else. But her only salvation was God, and that's what she chose at that particular moment. And for me, I feel like, as obviously our situation is not extreme. You know, whatever you go through in life is not would probably never be as extreme as being stuck in a bathroom with 6 other women or being part of a war. However, we have experienced a situation where we were stuck in our houses because of COVID, and we had a choice to choose what we believe in, how we are going to survive. And I have a very, very strong feeling that when I was in my bathroom, which was now COVID, and being here in the house, I remember very well when I got COVID. my first instinct was to pray. And I feel like I never prayed as much as I prayed on that morning when I woke up and I felt that I was sick. I prayed so much, and it's amazing how I journaled the whole thing, what I was feeling. But at the back of my mind, I knew that God was going to get me through, being sick. Of course, I got medication as well, but I knew very well that this is not how I was going to go out. And I believe I probably survived because of that. Not to say that people who didn't survive did not have anything to believe in, or God did not, they didn't believe in God. But I feel like for me, that is what helped me. So when Immaculée is in the bathroom, she starts to get visions. And the first experience that she starts to have is when they now have to go into the bathroom and the soldiers are coming, and God says to her, okay, so this is how she describes the bathroom. It's an ensuite in the pastor's bedroom, right? And obviously there's a door and there's a wardrobe. And so God says to her, take the wardrobe and put it in front of the bathroom, so that whoever comes in who doesn't know that there's a bathroom here, they won't think to move the wardrobe. And so that's the first encounter that she has with God, because she literally didn't know what gave her that idea, but she believed God gave her the idea. And that is what intensified her survival mode, basically. She says that she prayed without fail every single hour and second that she was awake. She prayed, she meditated on verses, and did nothing else. The other ladies in the bathroom thought she was mad because she was praying every second. I think I wrote down here how she says, I never stopped praying, and the whispering never relented. What was the whispering? It was doubt. It was, she describes it as, it literally felt like the devil was on her shoulder, whispering things like, people are out there killing women who are pregnant, and they're taking out the children out of their wombs. Why do you think you're going to survive? Why do you want God to spare you and not those kids? Those children are innocent. When you've done so much, you're 20 years old, you've done so much, you've been disrespectful, you have, literally she gets reminders of all the things that she has done that would make God not to spare her. And so she has to now believe without a doubt that God will spare her. Now, it sounds, when you read the book, it sounds extreme because obviously it's an extreme situation, but it also sounds like a movie, something like that is made up because of how intense it is. Like, even when I think about it, I feel like it's impossible to be praying non-stop every second. But she says it's her story and it is the truth. That is what happened. She also talks about how when she was going through all of this, at some point she had a dream, and she saw Jesus come to her, and he said, I will spare you, I will save you, you will get out of this. And that is what made her to believe even more that she was going to make it. Now, here's another thing that doesn't sound like the truth, but it is. She dreamt that God said to her, you will survive this. You will have to tell the story in English. And she did not know Isingisi. So God said to her, learn English while you're in the bathroom. This is now 2 months in. Lo muntu agadli sometimes for 3 days. There's no, even the probably the people around her do not think that they're going to survive. She's the only one who believes here that they're going to survive. There's no teacher here. None of the people around her can even speak French, which was the language that she was taught in, not English. Now she must learn English. God says to her, you will survive this, and you will have to tell people what has happened to you, and you will have to say this in English. You will work for the United Nations while she's in the bathroom. So she asked the Reverend to give her any book that is in English, and if he has a dictionary, I'm going to get a dictionary, which luckily the Reverend does have a dictionary and 2 other books that are not basic English. I think one of them was an encyclopedia. And she doesn't remember the other book, what is it called, but it's like advanced English, not like basic English. And so she spends her time praying, meditating, and trying to learn English. She learned, my name is Immaculèe. I was trapped in a bathroom for 3 months. I have 6 other women with me that I survived with. That's what she learns. Now you can imagine, you're in a bathroom. There's literally piles that are higher, and that's what the Reverend explains, that there are piles of dead bodies that are higher than the house that they're in. Over 1 million people died during that time. There was a smell around because people were literally dying. And there's a point where there's a child that's crying. So that's how cruel those people were. They killed the mother, but not the child. And the child cried, and they heard the crying of the child for hours until it lowered and slowed down until it was completely, obviously, the child died. And then they hear dogs. Obviously, the dogs are now feasting over the child. So around that, that's what is around you. You're in a bathroom, you hardly eat, and God says to you, learn English. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's stuck with me, because I'm here in this house. I'm free. I have all the resources probably around me to better myself. But I have doubts that what God says I will be, I will become. And here's a person who has all reasons not to believe, but she believes. And for me, that's why I feel like if you want to start your journey in having faith, if you want to start the journey of getting rid of doubts about yourself, I feel like this is a perfect book for you, because it'll challenge you to believe in these things. And one thing that I love and that's really drew me to reading books and being versatile in my reading is that, I can't remember where I read it, that when you're reading a book, your brain doesn't know that you're not going through that. Even when you're watching a movie, that's why you cry. You cry because your brain doesn't know that you are not in that situation. So my brain didn't know that I wasn't stuck in the bathroom. When the soldiers are coming in, and I'm literally scared, my brain does not know that I'm not in that bathroom. And whatever Immaculèe does, my brain thinks I'm the one that's doing it. And that's why I feel like it's impossible to not change when you're reading books. I've intensified my reading over the last probably 3 years, obviously COVID, but I intensified, and there's been a dramatic shift in who I am over the last 3 years. My discipline has changed because of books that I've read. And when a person who knows me now probably thinks, oh my God, she's so disciplined, she exercises consistently, she eats healthy, she reads books, where does she find the time? It's because my mind has shifted from the people that I've had to navigate certain things with. And as we go through this series, I will share all of the books that I've had that have changed me in a way. And one that really upped my faith is obviously Immaculèe. So I said also about the choice. The choice is similar in the sense that Edith now also had to forgive the people that, the situation that she was in. And the main one that she had to forgive herself, and she called it a mental prison. She says, all of us, we are in some sort of mental prison. In as much as she was in a physical prison, but when she survived, she was stuck in the prison. She now was in a mental prison because she was free, yes, but the trauma that she went through made her to be in a mental prison. One of the things that she couldn't forgive herself for is that when you went to Auschwitz, which was the prison, there was Immaculèe Ilibagiza, and she was with her sister and her mom, and she was asked, who is this? Of which but Umawaki didn't look old, so she didn't know that would mean the mother would be killed. So she blames herself. Why didn't I say she was my sister? Why did I say she was my mother? Obviously, she didn't know at the time what that meant. But immediately when she said Umawake was in another queue, and it was a very intense Kiliana because they were put in this steam room and they never knew, people who were inside, whether it was water that was going to come out of the shower or was it gas that was going to burn them. And so that's the cue that she put her mother to. So one of the things that I want to focus on the choice is the idea of the mental prison that she talks about. So when she was out of the prison, when she has survived with her sister, she talks about the mental prison. She went on to study psychology, and she helped a lot of people get out of their own mental prisons, and she makes references to her patients and what they were going through. And there's a whole lot of things like she talk. There's people who come through because of addiction. There's people who come through because of trauma, and she helps those people get out of those mental prisons. Even parenting is covered in this book. But another thing that really stuck with me is how when Edith was growing up, Umawake always told her routine she wasn't beautiful, but at least she was smart. She's got brains, so she will be able to, survive. But in terms of like marriage and whatnot, Umawake didn't believe that because marriage at the time was based on beauty. But when she was in the prison, those words were now different. When she was young or when she was outside of the prison, these words were something that were her insecurity, that I'm not beautiful, I've just got brains. But when she was in the prison, these words meant something different. She now knew that she would survive because she had the brains. And there's literally a passage here, there's this line here where she says, I've got brains, I'm smart, I'm going to figure things out, which she says words mean different things based on where you are at that in your point in life. The mental prison at some point affects her to the point that she divorces her husband because she felt like he was holding her back. When she dealt with her trauma, she eventually goes back to her husband and they remarry because she finds out that it wasn't her husband that was holding her back. It was the mental prison that she was in that was holding her back. She wasn't furthering her studies because she was still in the mental prison. It was not her husband who was making her to go to, that was basically holding her back. And so that is the choice, and that is what I picked up, and what I loved about Edith is the authenticity of her journey and how she went through it, how she had to forgive herself. Forgiveness is hard. It's a very hard thing to maneuver, But forgiving yourself is the most hardest thing ever. I will make, I've been studying a certain cause, and I've struggled with it. And only now in 2023 do I need that qualification. And forgiving myself, because now I don't have the resources to do that qualification. 10 years ago, I had the resources, I fumbled them. And this is not the only thing that I've fumbled, by the way, that would be so helpful right now. And forgiving yourself in something like that, it's the worst thing ever. Just not even forgiving yourself, just like facing it. What's he? Hey, dude, you're here because of your own actions. I've seen it with with other people as well. You are now in a situation that could have been avoided had you made a different decision. And just like facing that, some people don't even want to face it. They don't even think about it. It's much easier to blame how your parents raised you, society, the community you were raised in, instead of looking in the mirror and saying, hey, you know what, you actually could have made a different decision, and you could have done things differently. But how I console myself in a way is that that's what I knew then. And I didn't have probably the skills and the know-how of navigating that situation. And I ended up making a wrong decision. But it's 10 years later. I know differently now. I've learned differently. And that's why I feel like that's something that we miss as human beings. Understanding that you can equip yourself and upskill yourself in ways that will help you in the future. And obviously we lack the vision, of where do you see yourself, and how can you get yourself there, and how can you navigate with the little that you have, with the little resources that you have. I often find that now that sesifundile, we are learned people, we now start to pick up on our mistakes that my parents ate. We start to pick up, how their trauma affected how they are bringing us. And you can literally get very angry at how your parents raised you and how they've affected your self-esteem and your confidence. And that's what Edith also goes through, because obviously being told by your mother that awumuhle affects you. However, it's how the society was at the time, and that's what her mother knew at the time, even though she was an educated woman. But you don't know what you don't know, and that's basically what her parents were going through, or her mother was going. She didn't know that how does it affect a person to tell them what agamuhle. She didn't know what how the impact of that as she grew older. And I love it for Edith that she used that very same statement to survive a very hard thing and a very traumatic experience. So when you read this book, that is what you will get. You will learn about parenting, you will learn about trauma, you will learn how to deal with trauma, and how you can identify your partner as a partner instead of a resource, if I could say, that is meant to to love you. Sometimes we treat partners as resources, like it's a resource for love, for support, for companionship, and that's all we see them as. However, you don't see yourself as a resource, maybe, I don't know, but you get to experience some of that in the choice. I want to go back to, as I close, I want to go back to Left to Tell, because there's still two things here that I feel like were key for me. This is 1994, but Immaculèe actually uses manifestation. which is big right now in our generation. Manifestation, visualizing, it's big right now. But in 1994, in that bathroom, Immaculée actually uses manifestation. She at some point she takes a paper and pen and she writes down the character of the men that will come and save them, the soldier. She literally writes down his characters. He's tall, he's dark, he's wearing this. The power of visualization. And I think the oranges are her prayers, and I want to just like read them out for you. I realized that my battle to survive this war would have been fought inside me. Everything strong and good in me, my faith, hope, and courage was vulnerable to the dark energy. If I lost my faith, I knew that I wouldn't be able to survive. I could rely only on God to help me fight. Another one that she says here, so this is what God said to her. When you leave this room, you will find that almost everyone you know and love is dead and gone. I'm here to tell you not to fear. You will not be alone. I will be with you. I will be your family. Be at peace and trust in me, for I will always be at your side. Don't mourn for too long for your family, Immaculée. They are with me and they have joy. And at this point, when God says to her, the story of how her parents have died and how her brother has died. She doesn't know that, but God tells her that in this passage. There's another one here that I have. Okay. Then Jesus spoke. Now this is a dream. Mountains are moved with faith, Immaculée. But if faith were easy, all mountains would be gone. Trust in me, and I know that I will never leave you. Trust in me and have no more fear. Trust in me, and I will save you. I shall put my cross upon the stone, and they will not reach you. Trust in me, and you shall live. I wish that I could have as much faith as this. It's a constant journey, and it's something that I feel like we are growing in what I've seen, or at the very least, what I consume, the content that I consume, tells me that as young people, we're definitely growing in our faith. And not just in God faith, like Christianity, but I feel like everyone is growing in their own way. I see a lot of people taking up, their callings, and they are navigating those callings in a way that speaks to them, like they're being very authentic, and I love that. It's not just about Christianity or believing in God, but it's what grounds you. And I feel like we're a nation that is growing in what grounds us, and we are not afraid to talk about it. And that is part of also why I'm starting this YouTube channel, is because I want to not be afraid to talk about what grounds me, and I want my story and my life and how I read books to also have an impact on your life. I wanted to encourage you to find what grounds you as well, and learn from it and navigate it, investigate it. I think there's a part in the Bible that talks about how if you don't investigate, or if you don't investigate your culture or your traditions, then you're not doing it right, basically. Because whatever you believe in, if it doesn't teach you to investigate it, then it's not doing its job. And so you will never navigate it in the way that you are meant to navigate it, because you are just like following religion, tradition, and whatnot. There's quite a lot of things that come with being Umzulu and our traditions. And if I don't investigate or question and be curious about being a Christian, being Umzulu, then I will miss out on the true meaning of life. Okay, the last part, which is I spoke about earlier, that Mina, I'm judging two characters here. I'm judging Ubabaga Immaculée. I feel like because he was the authority of the house. This is what happens. When the first message comes out, there's a death list. The son says, says, let's run. And Ubabaka refuses. And because he was the authority, I feel like they would have survived. I'm sorry. I feel like they would have survived, and that's just me. I feel like they would have survived had they acted at that point in time. Would say at midnight, let's go take the boat and go to another country. They would have survived, but that's just me. That's my human nature. Hey, and then I judge her boyfriend, John. So when she's in university, she falls in love with John, and I'm just gonna read what John says when she sees. John is a Hutu, so he was safe. When she sees Immaculée in the stair, I think she's like 2 months and a half inside the bathroom, and when he sees her, this is the first words that he says. He says, "I can't believe how skinny you are, Immaculée. Hugging you is like holding a bag of bones." While Immaculée is in the bathroom, because he's a Hutu, he's outside, he's playing basketball with other Hutu men. I don't even know how, that doesn't even make sense. He knows Guti girlfriend Yak is here, is starving, but he's outside living his best life. And then at some point, Immaculée questions him, Guti. She's like, I know, Guti, you're not going to be miserable, but do you have any sort of empathy? This is what he says. Well, okay, let me start maybe from here. I used a few of our precious moments to chastise him. Why didn't you write to me like you promised? Do you realize what I'm going through? And this is his response. Well, I know one thing. There are no other men looking at you, and that's one less thing for me to worry about, right? I'm a Dodage, guys, since the dawn of time. But yeah, so that's something that she also has to now navigate relationship, love, and you can imagine, okay, after the whole ordeal, how she navigates dating. But she doesn't dwell on it. But from that experience, you just know that she's probably had to go through quite a lot. So yeah, guys, that is Immaculée and her story, and that is Edith and her story. I hope I haven't given you a lot of details and I've intrigued you enough for you to go and buy these books, and I look forward to our next session. We will be talking about another book or books that I've read.